Hello and welcome. Losing a loved one to war, one of the most difficult challenges for anyone to face, but even tougher for those who are in the thick of fighting. So how do they cope? For some Israelis and Palestinians, the answer lies in laying down their arms and pledging never to fight again. Known as Combatants for Peace, these former enemies have come together and are now working against occupation, violence and settlements. Their new mission is a battle for hearts and minds, and it often pits them against their own governments, the public and former comrades in arms. On today's show we ask, how do you move forward from a decades-old conflict, and do former fighters make the best soldiers for peace? Well, you can join our conversation with your questions and comments. Send an SMS or an email and we'll take your phone calls on the show. Joining me now is Bassam Aramin, one of the founders of Combatants for Peace, who spent 7 years in prison for his involvement in attacks against Israeli soldiers. Mr. Aramin lost his 10-year-old daughter Abir, who was killed by an Israeli soldier while standing outside her school. Also joining us is Elik Al-Hanan, a former Israeli combat soldier who served from 1995 to 1998. He was born and raised in Jerusalem and was proud to join the army. He lost his sister, Smadar, to a suicide attack in Jerusalem more than 10 years ago. Gentlemen, I want to welcome you both to the program. Now, Combatants for Peace is marking its 5th anniversary, for which we should congratulate you. And Bassam, if I could start with you, please, first. It's a tribute to the dedication and resolve of people like yourselves and Elik, who have come together to try to fight the violence and push for peace. In spite of some of these tragic losses that we've described just now in the introduction, how much progress have you seen with Combatants for Peace? How much do you find it is building momentum and gathering support?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, we can see the result from our number. We started this organization in 2005 by 11 people, Palestinians and Israelis, and now we are around 600 people, growing slowly. It's not to sell or to buy the people, it's to convince them by your way. And because we are real people, it means we was in the other side. We practice the violence, we use the armed struggle against the occupation, and the Israelis are the same. And we reached to the point that this conflict cannot be solved in a military solution. And our experience is the reality more than 100 years. We are killing each other. So we bring to ourselves more pain and more conflict and more victims. And we continue in this circle of violence, act and react, revenge, without thinking that we need to stop this way, because simply it doesn't work. Right. So this is exactly what Combatants for Peace did.
Right. Now, how much harder is your job? How much harder is it to build support when you face issues such as the Gaza situation at the end of last year and the situation with the Gaza flotilla recently?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very hard. It's very difficult, because you think that you are swimming against the direction. And in this situation, I think we have, both the Palestinians and Israeli have good reasons to continue this conflict. But we know our way. It's very clear for us. They will never win us. It means we will never go back to the violence, because we prove that with non-violence, active, this is the only way to liberate ourselves, to liberate our land. And we believe that Slavs will never liberate themselves, their land. Just the courage people, and when you make peace with yourself and liberate yourself, you can liberate your land. Okay. So this is our responsibility as Palestinians and also as Israelis.
Let me bring in Elik Al-Hanan here. Really good to have you on the show as well, and congratulations on reaching the 5th anniversary of the Combatants for Peace. I wonder, in light of those recent tensions I was discussing with Bassam just now, what sort of reaction have you had from Israelis and people, I guess, on the other side of the fence, when it comes to showing that you are refusing, to use military force when you want to try to push for peace? How much resistance do you face?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having us. It's a pleasure, and thank you very much for your congratulations. Of course, we face pretty strong resistance. The discourse in Israel is growing more and more extreme as the situation becomes more and more desperate. However, I do think that unlike in the past, where the idea of not serving in the army, of standing out against the state's policies in such an explicit way, was unthinkable. Today, many more people understand that, well, Israeli government and the Israeli policies have gone bankrupt, and people do understand that we have something to say, and they want to listen.
Now,
we can see that in the numbers of young soldiers joining us.
Now, you were actually glad to join the military when you were young, when you were first involved in the military. And I wonder, in what way has your view of Palestinians changed in that time since you've become an activist for peace?
Well, it's not that it changed. It was created through my activities with Palestinians. As an Israeli living in a state that is, not to say the explicit word, but very near an apartheid regime, I never met Palestinians. I never had any contact with Palestinians before serving in the military. And while serving in the military, I didn't have any relation to them other than as enemies or something like that. It was through my activities in the Israeli-Palestinian Bereaved Family Forum, and above all in Combatants for Peace, the very close work with wonderful people like Bassam and other friends who formed the group, that we formed the group together with. That's how I met the Palestinians. This is how I formed my opinions of them. This is how I discovered basically everything I know. I must say that it is a shame, but from a situation of knowing nothing in my early 20s, I moved to a situation now where I feel that I have a good connection and a very strong belief and a great deal of respect for the Palestinian people and their struggle.
Now, there's an uncanny similarity between both of your stories. There's some tragic common themes in both of your lives. Bassam Aramin, take me through, briefly your story, how it all started for you as a youngster, as a boy, on the streets, challenging Israeli soldiers. I think as a youngster, you were about 12 years old when you witnessed a boy in the demonstrations being shot and killed right next to you.
That's right, and then I feel that deeply I need to revenge. As a kid, I think there's no choice for me just to defend myself or my own freedom as a child. Then it's a grow with you that you need to live free as a human being. You don't understand why those strange people came to occupy you or to control your life. Then I found myself when I was 17 years old in the Israeli jail after I used throw stones, and we create a local military group of young people to attack the Israeli soldiers. And it was after 7 years in the Israeli jails, which was very heavy and very strong, and in jail you just learn how to hate and how to be more determined to continue your armed struggle against this brutal enemy who want to kill you, to kill your humanity every day. But it's a long process. It's full of of pain, but we learn how to use your pain for another way. It's not just for revenge and more fighting. We are fighting to liberate ourselves, to have peace, and not only or not just to die. And then recently, 3 years ago, on the 16th of January 2007, unfortunately I lost my 10 years old daughter Abir in front of her school by an Israeli border police with an American rubber bullet from an American M16, from an American Jeep, for nothing in a normal day. And again, it's easy to go to the easy way, to revenge and hateness, but I didn't find the answer to kill an Israeli 10 years old daughter. And I claim that, and also Elik, we agree that who killed Abir and killed Smadar, it's the same brutal enemy. It's the occupation and the hateness and the violence. So it's not personal. We need to know how to use our pain in a different way.
I'm going to ask you a little bit in a little while about how your efforts to find some resolution has gone. But let me ask Elik here, at what point did your attitude change? Was there a trigger point for you where you really realized that you had to find a different path?
Well, I can't really say that my attitude had changed. When I joined the military, my positions were already pretty left-wing in Israeli standards. I believed in peace. I believed in dialogue with the Palestinians. I just didn't see the contradiction between that and my military service. I think the moment I understood was after the murder of my sister in 1997. She was killed in a suicide bombing by Hamas activists in the center of Jerusalem. And when I was confronted with this aspect of the conflict, with the price that one has to pay, looking around me for help, looking around me for support, all I saw and all I got was calls for revenge. And at that moment I understood that if I move in circles that have nothing to offer except revenge and more violence and more bloodshed, I must act, I must go out and find create new circles where there'll be more better hope.
And Alec, you were only 18 at the time, and Smother was only 14. At that point, you said, you know, I've read since you've said that she deserves better than to be remembered in such a sad fashion. Her death needs a better remembrance. And in what way did you mean that?
I mean, we have a tendency, as any kind of warring society, of making martyrs of our enemies and pretending that their sacrifice was worthwhile, putting them on pedestals and writing their names on monuments and pretending that they had to die. I'm saying that's not true. My sister needs to remembered for her sacrifice. That was a pointless, was a meaningless sacrifice in the service of the occupation. And a monument that I would like to see in the memory of my sister, in the memory of Abir, in the memory of all the children that died in this conflict, will be a just and peaceful solution. This would be a remembrance I can live with, and I think will do honor to my sister and to all the martyrs of this conflict. Any other way that justifies the way that they died or justifies the policies that brought to their death, I think it's, well, it's nothing less than contempt of the dead.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you some viewer questions when we return. We take a short break here. When we come back, we'll look at how those who step back from a conflict in the name of peace often become the target of suspicion of their own people. Don't go away.